The first time Adrian DeLuca saw Sienna Vale, she was not on stage. She was backstage, barefoot, trembling, and trying to pull her wrist free from the most famous theater director in the city. On the other side of the curtain, 800 people were applauding the charity gala's opening act. Spotlights swept across the golden stage. Cameras flashed. The orchestra waited for the next performance. But behind the curtain, there was no glamour. Only director Victor Hale, red-faced with anger, gripping Sienna hard enough to leave marks on her skin. "You don't walk out on me 5 minutes before your solo," he hissed. "You go on stage, smile, and do exactly what I told you." "I said no," Sienna whispered, trying to twist away. "I'm not wearing that costume. I'm not doing your private rehearsal either." Victor's face darkened. "You think anyone here came to see you? You're replaceable." Then he yanked her toward the stage entrance. Sienna stumbled, her shoulders striking the black backstage wall. She was a gifted but shy vocalist who had spent years singing in the shadows behind stars more famous than her. Tonight was supposed to be her first real solo. Instead, it had become a trap. Victor dragged her forward again, forcing a smile toward the waiting stage crew as if nothing were wrong. To the audience, it would look like nerves. To one man in the front row, it looked like fear. Adrian DeLuca rose from his seat. The entire hall noticed, because when the most feared mafia boss in the city stood up during a performance, people did not keep talking. They watched. Victor pulled harder. And that was when Adrian's voice cut through the music, sharp and deadly enough to freeze the entire theater. "Let her go." Silence crashed over the room. Victor turned. Sienna looked up, and Adrian DeLuca took one slow step toward the stage, his expression turning lethal as he saw the director's hand still locked around her wrist. "Before we continue, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from." Because the director thought he was forcing a frightened singer back on stage, but one filthy mistake had just made her the only woman standing between a mafia boss and a secret someone had tried to bury inside that theater for years. Victor Hale did not release Sienna immediately. For 1 second, he looked toward the front row. Then Adrian stepped into the aisle. The applause died. Victor's fingers loosened. Sienna pulled her wrist free and stumbled backward. A red mark circled her skin where his hand had been. Adrian saw it. His expression did not change, but the men seated near him quietly stood. Victor forced a laugh. "Mr. DeLuca, this is a rehearsal issue. She is nervous." Sienna looked at him in disbelief. "I said no." Victor turned on her. "You are under contract. Not for what you asked me to do." A murmur moved through the stage crew. Adrian reached the stage. What did he ask? Sienna opened her mouth, but Victor answered first. "A costume adjustment and a private rehearsal. Nothing more." Adrian looked at Sienna. "What did he ask you?" Sienna swallowed. "He changed my costume 10 minutes ago. He wanted the neckline cut lower and the cameras moved closer. When I refused, he said I could discuss my future in his dressing room after midnight." Victor's face hardened. She misunderstood. "No," Sienna said. "I finally understood." Adrian climbed the side steps. He stopped several feet away from her, leaving her space. Then he looked at Victor. "You dragged her after she refused. She owes this production a performance. She owes you nothing that requires fear." Victor glanced toward the donors and cameras beyond the curtain. "You cannot interrupt a live gala because an unknown singer became emotional." Adrian's gaze sharpened. "Unknown to you, perhaps." Sienna looked at him. They had never met. Victor stepped closer to Adrian, lowering his voice. "This theater depends on sponsors. If she walks out now, the second act collapses." Adrian looked toward the stage manager. "Can the orchestra continue without her?" The woman nodded. "We can extend the instrumental set. Then do it." Victor's jaw tightened. "You do not run my theater." "No," Adrian said. "But I own the building beneath it." The corridor went silent. Victor stared at him. Adrian continued. "The Hale Theater has missed 3 lease reviews in 18 months. My company purchased the debt last week." Victor's confidence changed too. "You cannot threaten me in front of my staff." "I am not threatening you." Adrian glanced at Sienna's bruised wrist. I am deciding whether you remain inside my property. Victor forced himself to smile. This is being exaggerated for attention. Sienna understood what he was doing. If the scene became public, he would call her unstable and desperate for fame. He had done it to other women, performers who disappeared from casting lists after private complaints. She stepped toward the stage entrance. I will sing. Adrian turned sharply. Victor smiled. Sienna raised her injured wrist. But not his version. She looked at the stage manager. Bring me the original costume. Open the curtain. Keep every camera live. Victor's smile vanished. What are you doing? For years, you told women no one would believe what happened backstage. Sienna's voice trembled, but she did not lower it. So let them watch now. Adrian studied her now with deep, unmistakable respect. The stage manager returned with Sienna's original silver gown. 2 female crew members formed a barrier while she changed behind a screen. Victor moved toward the control booth. Adrian's men blocked the corridor. No one turns off a camera, Adrian said. The orchestra shifted into Sienna's opening music. She walked toward the light, still barefoot, her wrist marked and her breathing uneven. Before she stepped through the curtain, Adrian spoke behind her. You do not have to prove courage by going out there. Sienna looked back. I'm not proving courage. The curtain began to rise. I'm taking back the stage he used to frighten us. She walked into the spotlight. 800 guests stared. Then Sienna lifted the microphone and said, Before I sing, there is something every woman who has worked in this theater deserves to hear. Behind her, Victor Hale went pale. Because Sienna was no longer the frightened performer he could drag into silence. And Adrian had realized she was about to expose more than one man's behavior. The curtain rose completely. Sienna stood beneath a white spotlight while 800 guests waited for music that did not begin. The gown shimmered, but everyone could see the red mark around her wrist. Victor remained frozen backstage. Sienna lifted the microphone. For years, she said, women in this theater were told that if we complained, we would lose our careers. We were told nerves made us confused, ambition made us ungrateful, and silence made us professional. No one coughed. No glass clinked. Sienna looked toward the wings where several young performers watched. Tonight, I was ordered into a costume I did not approve, called to a private rehearsal after midnight, and grabbed when I said no. A violinist lowered her instrument while another performer cried. Victor rushed toward the curtain. This is not part of the program. Adrian stepped into his path. Tonight it is. Victor pointed toward the audience. She is destroying a charity gala. No, Adrian said. You are learning what happens when the woman you tried to control receives a microphone. Sienna heard him from the stage. His voice did not rescue her. It gave her room. She continued, I will not name every woman who warned me. Their stories belong to them. But if your career depends on making people afraid to speak, then you never had talent. You had access. Applause began in the balcony. One person, then dozens. Soon the entire theater rose. Victor's face emptied. Sienna closed her eyes for one breath. The conductor lifted his baton. She sang. The first note was soft. The second carried farther. By the third, her voice filled the theater with such force that even the applause vanished beneath it. Adrian watched from the wings. He had funded concert halls for men who cared more about prestige than music. He had never heard anyone sing like she had something to reclaim. When the final note ended, the audience erupted. Sienna bowed once and left the stage without looking at Victor. Adrian placed his jacket around her shoulders. I did not ask for that, she said. You are shaking. I'm angry. You can be both. His answer surprised her. Most powerful men explained women's emotions. Adrian simply noticed. The stage manager approached with a tablet. Every camera stayed live. The speech is already spreading online. Victor stepped forward. You breached your contract, defamed this production, and cost me donors. Sienna turned. You grabbed me on camera. You provoked me. Adrian's expression hardened. Victor continued. You think one dramatic speech makes you untouchable? I built every career in this building. A voice came from behind the orchestra entrance. No, you buried them. A woman entered wearing a red coat. The staff recognized Marion Cole, a celebrated actress who vanished 7 years earlier after Victor called her unreliable. Victor went pale. Marion looked at Sienna. You were right not to name us, so I will name myself. She raised a rehearsal notebook filled with dates, private meeting requests, costume changes, penalties, and names of women removed after refusing Victor. Sienna stared at her. Why tonight? Marion looked toward Adrian. Because someone finally bought this building and asked why its best performers kept disappearing. Sienna turned to him. I reviewed the theater before purchasing the debt, Adrian said. The pattern was impossible to ignore. You knew. I suspected blacklisting. I did not know he would touch you. Victor laughed bitterly. So this was a trap. No, Sienna said. A trap requires someone forcing you into it. She lifted her bruised wrist. You walked in alone. Security escorted Victor away while donors demanded an independent investigation and performers gathered around Marianne. The adrenaline left Sienna suddenly. Her knees weakened. Adrian caught her at the elbow, his other hand hovering near her waist until she nodded. Angry? He asked. Very. Good. Why? Fear makes people leave. Anger makes them decide what should change. For the first time that night, Sienna smiled at him. Then a stagehand approached with a sealed envelope found inside Victor's locked office. Across the front, in Sienna's mother's handwriting, were 4 words, for the daughter who sings. Sienna stared at the handwriting on the envelope. Her mother had been dead for 9 years. Where was this found? Sienna asked. The stagehand pointed toward Victor's office. Inside a locked drawer beneath the contracts. Adrian moved closer but did not reach for the envelope. It is yours. Sienna broke the seal. Inside was a single page and a brass tuning key wrapped in faded blue ribbon. Her mother's letter began without greeting. If you are reading this, then Victor Hale finally lost control of the stage. Sienna's knees weakened. Adrian stood close enough to steady her, but he waited. She kept reading. Her mother, Elise Vale, had once been the theater's vocal coach. For years, Sienna had believed illness alone ended her mother's career. Sienna knew she had worked in music before illness forced her home, but Elise had never spoken about this building. Victor had not always been a famous director. Years earlier, he depended on Elise to arrange voices, rewrite weak scores, and prepare performers he later claimed to have discovered. When she demanded credit and fair contracts for the women he used, he threatened to destroy her career. Victor had been recording private rehearsals without consent and using the footage to pressure performers into silence. Elise stole the master archive before leaving. Sienna looked up. Those women weren't only blacklisted. Marianne's face tightened. He kept recordings. The letter continued. I hid the archive where Victor would never search because he does not understand music. The key opens the instrument that carries no sound. Trust the man who protects your choice, not the man who promises your success. Sienna unfolded the ribbon. Silver notes had been embroidered along its edge. Adrian studied them. A melody? Not exactly. She held the ribbon toward the stage lights. The notes formed a sequence, but every 4th symbol was upside down. Sienna's mother used to teach her that rests mattered as much as sound. The inverted notes are numbers, she said. Marion leaned closer. 3, 1, 7, 2. Sienna looked toward the storage level beneath the orchestra pit. The theater catalog numbered every damaged instrument before disposal. Instrument 3172 was listed as a silent rehearsal piano with its strings removed. Victor's office door slammed somewhere above them. A guard appeared. He escaped through the costume lift. Adrian's expression hardened. Where does it lead? Under the stage. Sienna closed her hand around the tuning key. He knows about the piano. Adrian turned to his men. Lock every exterior exit. Then he looked at Sienna. You stay here. She shook her head. The archive belongs to the women he targeted. And he may be waiting below. I spent years obeying people who said danger made my decisions for me. Adrian held her gaze. You are right. He offered his hand. Then we go together. The orchestra pit had emptied, leaving rows of chairs and abandoned sheet music beneath the darkened stage. Sienna led Adrian, Marianne, and 2 guards through a maintenance door. The basement smelled of dust, oil, and damp velvet. Instrument tags hung from broken cellos and cracked brass cases. They found piano 3172 behind stacked scenery. Sienna inserted the tuning key into an opening where the pedals should have been. A hidden panel clicked open. Inside sat dozens of labeled film reels, contracts, photographs, and cassette tapes. Marian covered her mouth. Sienna reached for the first reel. A spotlight snapped on above them. Victor stood on the metal catwalk holding a can of stage fuel. You always were Elisa's daughter, he said. Too curious to survive your own talent. He poured fuel across the railing. Adrian moved in front of Sienna. Victor lifted a lighter. Step away from the piano, or every secret burns with you. Sienna looked at the archive, then at the old sprinkler pipe above the catwalk. Her mother had not hidden the evidence in a place without protection. She had hidden it beneath the theater's original fire curtain system. Sienna reached for the red emergency lever. Victor's smile vanished. For the first time that night, the famous director looked afraid of the stage he had ruled for years. Sienna pulled the emergency lever. A steel fire curtain crashed down between the basement and the main stage with a deafening roar. At the same moment, the ancient sprinkler system burst alive. Water exploded across the catwalk. Victor cursed as the lighter slipped from his hand. The flame died before it touched the fuel spreading beneath his shoes. Adrian moved instantly. Get the archive out. His guards lifted the reels and document boxes from the piano compartment while Marian dragged a canvas cover over the remaining evidence. Victor gripped the railing. You think those recordings will destroy only me? He shouted. Donors paid to keep scandals quiet. Producers signed those contracts. Half the city benefited from women staying silent. That is why they need to survive, Sienna replied. Victor stared down at her. You have no idea what your mother did. She protected people you thought belonged to you. She stole my work. Sienna's anger sharpened. No, she stopped you from stealing theirs. Victor kicked open the catwalk gate and disappeared into the darkness. One of Adrian's guards followed, but Adrian caught his shoulder. He knows the building better than you. Protect the evidence. Sienna looked toward a narrow ladder beside the silent piano. He's heading for the lighting booth. Adrian turned to her. How do you know? The old control system can release every suspended set piece over the stage. If he cannot burn the archive, he'll create enough chaos to bury it. Above them, machinery groaned. A massive painted backdrop began descending crookedly into the basement entrance. Adrian pulled Sienna against him as the wooden frame crashed where she had been standing. Dust filled the room. For one terrifying second, she could hear nothing except ringing in her ears. Then Adrian's hand moved over her shoulder and arms. Are you hurt? No. You're bleeding. A splinter had cut her cheek. It's nothing. His jaw tightened. Stop deciding that injuries do not matter because they are yours. The words caught her off guard. Behind them, Marian called out, We have everything. The guards carried the archive toward the service stairs while Sienna led Adrian through a side passage connecting the orchestra level to the stage. The theater above was still filled with reporters, donors, and performers waiting for answers. The audience had not been dismissed because every exit near the loading dock had been temporarily locked during the search for Victor. That gave him hundreds of witnesses. It also gave him hundreds of potential victims. Sienna reached the stage first. The curtains were open. Victor stood inside the elevated lighting booth above the balcony, one hand on the mechanical release panel. Suspended directly over the stage was the gala's enormous crystal chandelier. The same chandelier Victor had insisted be lowered for dramatic effect during Sienna's final song. Now its support cable was slowly unwinding. People began screaming. Clear the center, Sienna shouted. Stagehands rushed forward, guiding guests away from the chandelier's shadow. Victor's amplified voice filled the theater. Look at her. One unknown singer destroys a production, accuses the man who created her, and now everyone applauds. Sienna stepped into the spotlight. You did not create me. Victor's hand tightened around the release switch. I gave you a stage. You gave me fear and called it opportunity. Adrian entered behind her. Victor saw him and laughed. And now you hide behind a criminal because you cannot survive this world alone. Sienna looked back at Adrian. He did not move in front of her. He did not take the microphone. He simply stood where she could see him, protecting her choice, exactly as her mother's letter had said. Sienna faced the audience again. My mother built the voices you claimed as your discoveries. Marian lost 7 years because she refused you. Dozens of women were punished because you believed access made you powerful. Victor raised the release lever another inch. The chandelier dropped violently. Gasps tore through the hall. Sienna did not run. She looked toward the orchestra pit, where the old fire curtain controls connected to the stage rigging. Then she lifted her microphone and sang one clear, sustained note. The sound technician understood. He sent the note through the theater's emergency acoustic sensor. The fire system activated again. Steel safety braces shot across the rigging track and locked the chandelier less than 10 feet above the stage. Victor stared at the frozen mechanism. Sienna lowered the microphone. You never understood this theater, she said. You only understood how to frighten the people inside it. Police entered the lighting booth from both sides. Victor fought briefly, then disappeared beneath their hands. The audience watched as he was escorted down the aisle he once walked like a king. No applause followed, only silence. When he passed Sienna, he whispered, Without me, you are nothing. She met his gaze. Then the orchestra began playing behind her. Marian stepped onto the stage. One by one, other former performers joined her. Sienna looked toward Adrian. He gave her a small nod. Not permission, belief. She lifted the microphone. And this time, when she sang, the theater belonged to every voice Victor had tried to silence. The final note faded beneath the theater's painted ceiling. For several seconds, no one moved. Then the audience rose. The applause did not belong only to Sienna. It belonged to Marianne, to the former performers standing beside her, and to every woman whose name Victor had removed from programs, contracts, and casting boards. Sienna lowered the microphone. Her hands began shaking only after it was over. Adrian saw. He remained near the wings while investigators carried the rescued archive through the auditorium. He did not walk onto the stage and turn her victory into his entrance. He waited until she came to him. The moment Sienna stepped behind the curtain, the strength left her knees. Adrian caught her carefully. I'm fine, she whispered. You are bleeding, exhausted, and still barefoot. That sounds almost fine. His mouth curved, but concern remained in his eyes. A medic cleaned the cut on her cheek and wrapped her wrist. Across the corridor, police questioned Victor while theater employees gave statements. Marian guarded Elise Vale's letter as though it were priceless. By morning, the evidence had already changed the industry. The archive contained illegal recordings, altered contracts, private threats, and proof that Victor had stolen arrangements created by Sienna's mother and several other women. Producers who had protected him began denying they had ever known him. This time, the cameras had preserved everything. Sienna's refusal, Victor's grip, her speech, his attempt to destroy the archive, his final attack on the theater. He could no longer rewrite what happened backstage. 3 days later, the theater board gathered on the empty stage. Adrian sat in the front row rather than at the head of the meeting. Sienna noticed. You own the building, she said. The building. Not the meeting? Not your future. The board formally removed Victor and announced an independent review of every contract signed during his leadership. Marian accepted a temporary role helping former performers recover unpaid credit and compensation. Then the board offered Sienna Victor's position. She refused. Several members looked shocked. I am a singer, she explained. Giving me his office because I exposed him would turn one kind of control into another. Hire someone qualified to direct. Give performers independent reporting channels. And return stolen credit before announcing a new era. Adrian watched her with quiet pride. The board agreed. Sienna accepted something smaller and more meaningful. The right to create a concert honoring the voices erased from the theater's history. She called it The Unwritten Names. For 6 weeks, she rehearsed beside performers who had not shared a stage in years. Adrian attended quietly whenever business allowed. He never sat in the center. He chose the last row. One night, Sienna found him there after everyone else had left. "You keep hiding in the dark," she said. "I was told the stage belongs to you. You could sit closer. I distract people. You terrify people." That too. She sat beside him. The empty theater felt different without Victor. The silence no longer carried threat. It held possibility. Sienna looked toward the stage. "My mother should have been here. She is." Adrian nodded toward Elisa's restored name now engraved beside the orchestra entrance. Sienna's eyes filled. "Why did you really buy the theater debt?" He considered lying, then chose honesty. "My mother loved this place. She brought me here when I was a boy. Years later, she stopped coming and never explained why. After she died, I found a program with Marianne's name crossed out and your mother's written beside it. You knew about Elise? Only that someone had erased her. I wanted to know why." Sienna looked at him. "So you did not come to the gala for me?" "No." The answer should have disappointed her. Instead, Adrian continued. "But I stayed because of you." His hand rested between them, open but not demanding. "You walked onto a stage while frightened and made everyone else less afraid. I have seen powerful men command rooms. I have never seen anyone give courage away like that." Sienna placed her hand in his. "You could have taken over." "I wanted to. I know. I am learning restraint. Slowly. Painfully." She smiled. The concert opened 1 month later. Every performer received her proper credit. Elise Vale's unfinished composition became the final song, completed by Sienna using notes hidden inside the ribbon. When Sienna walked into the spotlight, Adrian stood in the wings. Not in front of her, not shielding her, waiting where she could find him when the song ended. After the performance, Sienna crossed backstage and stopped before him. "You told Victor to let me go. I remember. And then you never tried to hold me." Adrian's expression softened. "I wanted you to stay because you chose to." She stepped closer. "I'm choosing." Their first kiss happened behind the same curtain where Victor had once dragged her toward the stage. This time, no one forced Sienna into the light. She had claimed it for herself. And the Mafia boss who frightened the entire city became the one man who loved her enough to wait until she walked toward him.